This is Dave with the Newscast, and we're back. I'm here with Xavier Diamant, and we just got done talking about Ready Player One and the new Technotronic. It's not new. It's the Technotronic era, which we're in. You're in right now, listening to us today, September 5th, 2019. And I wanted to transition from Ready Player One, which is a fictional depiction created by Steven Spielberg and the Hollywood movie Magicians, to an interview segment from with Joe Rogan and John Carmack on the Joe Rogan podcast. And for those of you who don't know who John Carmack is, he is a foundational pillar in the video game industry as far as innovation in graphic processing technology and really game concept. He invented almost single-handedly the first-person shooter. Anybody who was aware during the Columbine shootings probably remembers that the shooters were avid video game players. They played Doom and other first-person shooters that were inspired by Doom, and it all goes back to John Carmack. And John Carmack is a very interesting, I think he's a charismatic, and I mean, everybody listening to him will be like, oh, this is just a geek, he's a nerd, but he's a really intelligent engineer. He's innovated a lot of the software in terms of getting more out of existing hardware. And so, you know, he's a thought leader in those industries. He worked and created id Software, which developed the Doom series of video games, as well as Wolfenstein 3D and many others.
Quake, right?
Quake as well was another really popular one, and he actually left id a few years back to join the staff of Oculus Rift, which was a Kickstarter that was purchased by Facebook to begin selling and distributing their virtual reality headset. And he joined as the chief technology officer there. And he also had, interestingly, you find this, Xavier, that he had a space exploration aerospace company to, you know, much in the way of SpaceX. It was on a much smaller scale, but I've got a clip after we get into the VR subject that deals with his ultimate dealings with that space exploration venture. But going back to the Ready Player One and the future that the elites have planned for you with Oculus Rift, virtual reality, and giving you some sort of distraction from the shitstorm that they have planned on the physical plane here on Earth. So just, this is what excites John Carmack about Oculus Rift, and I just want the listeners and you to react to its likeness to what was depicted in that short trailer, Ready Player One. Right, here we go.
So our previous one right before this, the Oculus Go, was a little bit more media focused, and that's one of our more popular applications. I mean, surprisingly, everybody thought that VR was going to be all about these just amazing gaming experiences, but some of the most popular experiences are doing reasonably conventional things, watching Netflix, watching YouTube, Amazon Prime, stuff like that, where if you're you and you've got a great home theater and everything, there's not this much benefit to having a theater like that in VR. But if you're in a situation like you're in a tiny room in Tokyo or something, the idea of being able to put on the VR headset and have this like lovely ski lodge atmosphere with a giant screen TV, it has some real benefits. So in the end, VR should be a replacement for anything you do on screens today, whether it's your phone, your tablet, your TV, your laptop, your PC, all of these should eventually be superseded by just having more flexible screens in VR. I mean, we have lots of challenges now with resolution and comfort for long-term use, but this is the direction that everything's going. Not only do you have things in VR that you couldn't do anywhere else, just experiences that you can't have with that level of immersion, but it should pull along every other thing that people do with screens devices today.
I did.
Wow. So basically, he's saying that the evolution of all of this handheld screen technology is going to become that much more intimate and right in your face, almost indistinguishable from like a hat, where you just cloaks over your entire frame of reference for the real world, and gives you a virtual space that, as he described, if you're in a small room, wonder in the future if they've got in store for us lower standards of living in smaller rooms where, hey, just put on Oculus Rift and you can fantasize being in some other wonderful paradise where you don't have to look around at the reality around you that's real and feel depressed. You can just put on this amazing...
You can go to a happy place.
Yeah.
You can go to a happy place.
I mean, it's kind of like if you go back to like the early dystopic novels like Brave New World, you know, they had a pharmacopoeia like soma, right, that everyone took, that it was like a drug that made everyone happy, and that was what kept this hyper-regimented reality in place. But this is basically the Matrix, but voluntary.
Right, and he basically outs the marketing plan. Most people are doing conventional things with VR. They're watching Netflix, they're watching YouTube, anything you do on your Surface or your tablet or your computer. Now, Duncan Trussell does a good bit on this, right? Where he talks about how computers initially took up a room, then they took up a desktop, then they took up a laptop, then they took up a pocket, and now they're going to jump on your face,
right?
And then next they're going to jump in your brain.
Yep. And probably down your pants along the way.
Well, that's yeah. There's some good episodes of that show Black Mirror. I don't know if you watched that on Netflix, but there's some good shows about that. Also, you can just look at the innovations in sex dolls and sex toys, etc. It's going to become a very idiocracy, go away, I'm baiting type situation.
Absolutely, which we've referenced that before, but also like Wall-E,
right?
Because it's like
which you bring up in the article.
I bring up kind of in the article as one sort of ominous specter of where this all could go. Where 23 hours of the day, I really would just prefer to be in Oculus Rift zone. And if my real body just goes to shit, well, it doesn't matter because I can have this perfect physique
and as
in
long
the
as,
virtual world.
As long as our technology can provide enough oxygen to the blood and
proteins
liquid to sustain the biological form of the body to drive the brain, then we're good, right? And John Carmack in this interview, he says, I'm a strict materialist. Yep. In other words, I think he says the body is the mind in action, which I thought tied in beautifully with your article because you talk about the corporeal body, and it's like he totally ignores, obviously he thinks his body, his brain is going to put this thing on, and then he's going to control whatever that thing is. So it's like...
It's really solipsism. That I am the only reality that's discernible to me. Therefore...
Right.
I'm the interface. I am the rule maker. I make my own
Exactly.
reality, and it goes back to like